Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Thursday's episode of Trending. Where to begin? It's all kicking off. Thank you so much for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. You'll notice I'm indoors with a big thick sweater on. It's global warming. Now, the biggest story, I suppose, bearing in mind there's many, the biggest story, I suppose, breaking at the minute is the seizure by Donald Trump and the UK, of course, of the Russian-flagged oil tanker in the Atlantic. And I am going to come to that, of course. But I think this story connects a little bit better, to be honest. Reason being is I'd read this story that I'm going to come to yesterday, and I shared it on my social media. And then, of course, there was the seizure of the oil tanker by the American forces. And it's all, there's a big rift between Trump and Putin, all that kind of stuff. And then it emerges that actually Britain has played a key role in that. And everyone's like, oh my goodness me, Britain's involved. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, I was reading a story yesterday. Britain was involved not only in this, but in what's gone on in Venezuela. So I'll start with that one, and then obviously I'll come to the Russian tanker story. So this is a story from yesterday, how Britain helped Trump destabilise Venezuela. They're enemies, aren't they? Trump and Starmer. Yeah. For public consumption theatre they are, ladies and gentlemen, not in reality. During the early hours of Saturday morning, US forces bombed Venezuela and kidnapped its president, Nicolas Maduro. This was a clear breach of international law, violating the terms of the UN Charter, which prohibit interference in and the use of force against sovereign states. Someone should tell Britain, America, Israel, any of them, to be fair, that actually you're not meant to do that, because no one seems to have told them. Yet Keir Starmer, a former human rights lawyer, has refused to condemn the attack or even acknowledge its brazen illegality. Well, yeah, because he hadn't been given the script yet at that point when he was first questioned about it. Because that's the thing with Starmer. I don't know if you've noticed this, but he looks freaking terrified all the time. Whether it be in Prime Minister's questions, where he's essentially being grilled by Kemi Badenoch, who's an idiot as well. It's not the Brain of Britain contest, those two. Yet whenever she's pressing him, he's clueless. And if you're clueless faced by her, best of luck. And any time a media outlet sticks a microphone in his face, he's terrified. The reason why he's terrified is he doesn't know what to say because he doesn't have any opinions of his own. He doesn't have any views of his own. Now, when he's been given the script prior to the interview, he's fine, he's relaxed. Just relaxed kind of guy. I sound like Zippy and I look like an owl, but I'm a kind of chilled out guy. Then he's fine. When he gets probed on something that he hasn't been given his opinion on yet, that's when he's terrified. And he's terrified because he doesn't want to mess up. So when they put the camera in his face, he fumbles over himself. He's a terrified man. That's what he is. He's essentially a terrified boy in a man's body, actually. But and by saying that, there's no way he's calling the shots. Now, I don't like Keir Starmer at all. I imagine he's not got skeletons in his closet. There's morgues and cemeteries and all sorts in there. Throw a crematorium in there as well. Those out there will know what I'm talking about there. Ukrainian rent boys setting fire to stuff. That's my link with the crematorium. And that'll come back and bite him in the end as well. So this is what his reply was when he hadn't been given the script. I want to get all the material facts together and we simply haven't got the full picture at the moment. I mean, it's spoken like a true politician, that, isn't it? It's called sitting on the fence. Starmer then wrote on social media, he's got his script by this point, it's arrived. I know, I'm sorry it's late. Yeah, snail mail, innit? He'd got his script, so then he said, Britain regarded Maduro as an illegitimate president and shed no tears about the end of his regime. Whew, he's made a comment. By contrast, of course, it took him 24 hours to call Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine a war of aggression. Yes, because war with Russia is the goal. So therefore, him demonizing Russia and attacking Putin and all that kind of stuff, he'd already had that script. So he was fine with that one. He's good when he's got a script. Whereas toppling Maduro is also a goal, of course. But so I'm in an awkward situation then, because I can demonize Russia for doing it, even though they didn't kidnap Zelensky, but couldn't find him. He was too busy going around the world grifting for money. He's never in, is he? But you demonize Putin for that, because that's the goal, is war with Russia, of course. And I should, therefore, if I'm consistent, demonize the Americans and Trump for going into Venezuela. Yeah, but that's the goal as well. And that's what you find. It's the hypocrisy of politicians. They will demonize and condone the same thing depending on who's doing it. While refusing to condemn Trump's actions, Starmer insisted there was no UK involvement in this operation. Right, well there was then, because it's Keir Starmer, and he lies for a living. Same as a couple of days ago when I was doing the story about Netanyahu coming out and saying, yeah, we're not going to attack Iran. Well, you are then, because you've said you're not, so I know you are then. Same with Starmer. As soon as Starmer says the UK wasn't involved, I know they were involved. Royal Navy personnel have nonetheless been embedded in the US armada surrounding Venezuela over recent weeks. So they are involved then. Okay. With the Ministry of Defense refusing to clarify whether they were present during the attack. So they probably were then. Yeah, that's called lying by omission. Just don't say anything. Defense Secretary John Healey apparently ordered them not to take part in the strikes on Venezuela, and US-UK intelligence sharing was reportedly frozen. I was halfway through a sentence. Stop. In the Caribbean in order to avoid British complicity in breaches of international law. So they knew it was a breach of international law then. Otherwise, you just carry on, wouldn't you? What a joke international law is anyway. It's complete irrelevance. Because breaking the law is fine, international law. Breaking international law is fine, or it's not fine, depending on who's breaking it. It's as simple as that. The actual law itself is irrelevant. Because people aren't held to the same standards. Therefore, what's the point? You have a situation where, I mean, I'm no fan of Saddam Hussein, but Saddam Hussein broke, what, 2 UN resolutions and got bombed to hell, destroyed and hanged. And then I think, how many's Israel broken? It's got to be in the 80s, isn't it now? Because it was in the 70s, about 5-10 years ago. And imagine how many they've broken since. Yet what happens? Nothing. Gets invited to America 45 times a year. Another important part of this, and again, we come to it when we're talking about the seizure of this Russian flagged vessel, the fact that Starmer and Trump are aligned and are working together. See, for public consumption, they despise each other. Trump can't stand him. He belittles him in public. You know, they attack Britain for the state of free speech in Britain, which is, of course, absurd. Free speech in Britain is ridiculous, but it is in America as well. It is. If you call out the end-of-level boss, you're in all kinds of trouble in America. So they don't actually have free speech there. But I saw a perfect example of this whole frenemies thing, which is what Starmer and Trump are. And it's what all of them are. They all pretend to be enemies. They play different characters on the stage. But when they walk, yeah, you, and they walk and cut. Whew, do you want a pint? That's what it is. That's what politics is. Well, I doubt they drink beer. They could probably quaff champagne and adrenochrome. A perfect example of this was a photo that emerged yesterday of Marco Rubio and Chuck Schumer. Now, these are like sworn enemies, right? So this is the joke of American politics, and Britain's the same. I'm not just attacking America. We're all the same, world over. So you've got Schumer and Rubio, enemies. You know, calling each other all sorts. Look at this photo of them. They look proper enemies, aren't they? And it's the same, like I say, with all world leaders, including those that are supposed to be at war with each other. Because yes, of course, when you're getting to this level of politics, you're only there because you're a narcissistic sociopath, psychopath. That's how you got there. That's why you were picked and selected, not elected, for the role. So yes, when you have narcissists, you're going to have infighting and squabbling. But ultimately, if that infighting and squabbling starts to affect the agenda, see you later. So they're working for the same ends, all of them. Trump, Starmer, Ursula von der Leyen, Xi Jinping, Putin, all of them. They're all working to the same end. The arguing and the fighting and the war and the being blown up and the unable to feed your family because your economy has crashed is for us plebs. It's not for them. We do that bit. We suffer that bit. They don't. They're involved in any of that stuff. Because whether you like this or not, because I know a lot of you are probably still on the Trump train to a certain degree, probably less so than you were, almost certainly. I doubt you're riding up front anymore. But you may be clinging on to the guard's van at the back of the train a little bit. What Trump is doing is destroying the United States, and it's destroying the status quo. Whether it be economically, militarily, all of that stuff. He's a chaos agent. Starmer, sworn enemy, smack my microphone, is destroying the United Kingdom in all the ways that we know he is. And so you have the same situation all across Europe with European leaders, and they're all the same. Everyone is destroying the status quo and their own nations. All of them are doing that. And what's mad, actually, is we're at a position now where we, the people that also see this corrupt system, these corrupt politicians, these corrupt institutions, these corrupt financial systems, banking cartels, we want to see the end of them as well. So actually, we want to destroy the status quo. So we're in a mad situation, folks, where we, the people, to a large degree, want to destroy the status quo. And these politicians and so-called elites, demons, ghouls, whatever you want to call them, they also want to destroy the status quo. So we're aligned, which is mad, isn't it? That is mad, but it's true. But for a different end. So we want to bring down the status quo because it's unfair and it's corrupt and it leads to endless wars and death and suffering and starvation and abuse and pedophilia and all these things that are installed as a crucial part of this system. We want to pull that down, and we want to replace that, overwhelmingly we do anyway, with fairness and harmony and peace and equality and love and unity. And everyone having a full belly and a roof over their head. Now, they want to pull down that same system, but they don't want any of the stuff we want. They want to bring in another more draconian system of top-down control, ultimate control, where you do away with nation states. Or no. We want just one big end-of-level boss. So essentially, at the point we're at now in terms of the destruction of the status quo, whether it be the destruction of the monarchy or whatever, which I would also agree with. I don't believe in the monarchy. I know some of you do, but I don't. I don't believe that Sausage Fingers has a right to rule over me because of his genealogy. It's absolute nonsense because a load of cousins had sex with each other. Nah, you're all right, mate. It's a bit backward for me, I'm afraid. But, so we're aligned at that point that we're at now. Now, to people that might sound a bit odd, the fact that I'm sat here saying that those so-called elites and the parasite class are aligned with we the people. Sounds like a stupid thing to say. I understand that. But only at this point in terms of destroying the status quo. What we go beyond that in terms of what we want and peace and love and harmony and what they want in terms of absolute control were very different. But we're at that point of destruction at the minute, which is why so many people are looking at what Trump's doing and cheering it on. So let me explain as an analogy. So say, for instance, say you've got a business. Say you've got a company. Say, I don't know, you've got an iron manufacturer. Let's go with that. I don't know where I've got that from, but iron manufacturer. So you've got all these people working in this iron manufacturing business, and the business is pretty rubbish. It's not doing great. The wages are pretty rubbish and unfair, and there's, lots of injuries and deaths as a result of malpractice within the company, right? So the people that work for that business, they work for that company, they want to take it over. They want to have a revolution within the industry to take that over with the goal of having better wages, better health and safety, fairness, support, whatever, right? And then you've got another management. Let's say BlackRock, right? Let's say a hedge fund. They also want to take over this iron manufacturer. So they're both aligned. We want to take it over. We want to take it over. But they want to take it over so they can completely asset strip it, fire all the staff, sell off all the assets, like I say, sell off the land, and make an absolute bucket full of money. So you're actually aligned at this point in terms of taking that business over. What you want to do with it in the end are two very different things. And that's the situation we're in terms of the status quo and the destruction of it. I'll carry on with the story now. Since 2019, because it is interesting, trust me. Since 2019, Britain has frozen over $2 billion of Venezuelan gold in the Bank of England. They've sponsored anti-government initiatives and even set up a secretive Venezuela reconstruction unit to plan for the day after Maduro's overthrow. Yeah, so they knew it was coming then. They knew that was the plan. Because it's been in the pipeline for a very, very long time, and it's absolutely nothing to do with narco gangs. If it was to do with drug gangs, Donald Trump wouldn't be pardoning Honduran drug barons in the lead up to overthrowing Maduro. That doesn't make any sense. Are you against drugs or not? And also, in terms of Britain's involvement, Britain recognised, I don't know if you remember this guy, he was like an X Factor celebrity superstar who came and went in 20 minutes. A guy called Juan Guaido, was that how you pronounced his name? Do you remember him? Britain recognised him as Venezuela's president. Now, this isn't a pro-Maduro trending. It's not. I don't like that guy either. They all are. As I made the point earlier, they all answer to the same people fundamentally anyway. And I don't believe it was a legitimate election for Maduro, and I don't believe he's a good guy at all. Because none of them are. But it's the hypocrisy I'm calling out. So Britain recognised this Juan Guaido guy as the president, or the legitimate president of Venezuela. Now, they did that because Trump did, and they were trying to curry favour with Trump. Bearing in mind, there was never an election. So you can say, like, Maduro isn't the legitimate president of Venezuela because it was a fixed election, a rigged election, whatever. Yeah, maybe it was. I have no doubt it probably was. But you can't stand up as this sort of bastion of morality saying, yes, we need to get rid of that guy, kidnap him, give his wife a black eye and kidnap her as well, whilst previously having recognised a guy as the Venezuelan president who'd never even been in an election, let alone rig one. Also, Britain has funded many non-governmental organisations that were there to undermine Maduro's government. Of course, they've frozen all the gold assets. They've put crippling sanctions on Venezuela for a very long time. And this is what they do. They've done the same with Iran. They're doing the same with Russia. Is essentially, if someone steps out of line, then they cripple the living hell out of them with sanctions to make life miserable and impoverished for the population. Then they install and put in agents, intelligence agents on the ground to stir up civil unrest, which is exactly what's going on with Mossad being on the ground in Iran as we speak, admitted by Mike Pompeo, by the way, to then stir up all this stuff and stir up an uprising, and then there's a violent uprising, the government comes in, cracks down on it. Then everyone goes, oh my God, just like they did in Syria with Assad. He's killing his own people. Oh, we've got to go in and take him over. We'll install our puppet, who's always friendly with Israel every time. Just a coincidence. And then we've got you. And then what happens to that nation once the people have been liberated and given freedom? Well, I don't know. Ask the Iraqis, ask the Afghans, ask the Libyans, ask the Syrians, see what they say. They'll have a few words to say for the Venezuelans, I'm absolutely sure. The Foreign Office is now refusing to disclose which non-governmental organisations it's been funding in Venezuela over recent years. You shock me. It justified this. This is the bit. It justified this by saying information which would be likely to prejudice relations between the United Kingdom and another state needs to remain confidential. And what state do you think that is? I mean, I don't know. I actually don't know what state it is. I could hazard a guess, but it would just be a guess. So I'll let you decide as to what state you think it is. But it's certainly a state that Britain's absolutely terrified of. And I would say it's a state that America is absolutely terrified of as well. So it just goes to show Britain is up to its neck in all of this, as it always is, as it was or is in the genocide. It's not a genocide, it is, in Gaza, by providing military support for the IDF. Britain's up to its neck in it. And when I say Britain, the same way as when I say America, I'm not referring to the British people, because I'm one of them. And I'm not referring to the American people. I'm referring to the American government, who doesn't represent the American people. Same as our government doesn't represent us. That's why when John Fetterman, the maniac pro-Israel senator in the US, tweeted yesterday that America isn't a bully, right? I laughed, because that's funny. And when I laughed, some people who are American got a bit offended by it. It's like, no, I'm not saying you're a bully, mate. You probably work at Walmart. You're all right. Your government is a massive bully. Same way the British government is a massive bully. All governments are bullies. And when they're not bullying other governments, they're bullying their citizens. Right, so moving on then to this second story. So that's the end of this free section that goes out on social media. To continue watching the rest of the episode for free as well, the link is in the description below. If it's on X, it's in the tweet below. Click through and you can carry on watching for free.